Namaste, my name is Nirvana Chaudhary. I'm the Managing Director of Chaudhary Group, Vice Chair of Chaudhary Foundation. I've been part of Nepal's squash team. I've also been the WWF and UN's brand ambassador. I sit on a couple of multinational boards as well as some public listed companies. I represent some independent organizations like CNI. I represent Serbia as its honorary consul to Nepal. I love trekking. I've done a number of treks including Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp, Annapurna, and I continue to do that every year and climb my own mountain. I love making music and I've done a few tracks. What I'm going to share with you is all the learnings, the lessons that I've learned today that might be helpful for you tomorrow. I'll go back right at an early age of 12, where I still remember while coming back from boarding schools, I used to see my other friends go out to play football or other sports. At a very, very early age, I knew that coming from a business family, although we were all told that we would be allowed and should pursue whatever we are passionate about, I knew that being the eldest in our family, in between my brothers, I would have to get into the shoes of my father. A Herculean task of someone who's just taken Nepal to the world. As he says, a small man from a small country, but with big dreams. I learned a lot right at the beginning, growing up in a family-owned business. At the age of 12, I remember while coming back from boarding school, I used to be sitting in my father's boardroom, just observing and learning. At the age of 15 was where I distinctly remember the first important lesson I learned. I was studying in London at that time at Harrow School, and instead of coming back home for holidays, I decided to do some internship. And I was interning during the daytime in one of the world's renowned investment banks, and at night time I was a waiter in a Nepali restaurant in London. While my stint at the investment bank, I clearly remember that I was getting my experience in the various fields within the investment bank, mutual funds, bonds, the treasury department, investment banks, managing portfolios. This was in the year 1998. My boss at that time told me, why don't you just make a portfolio for someone, one of their clients? And I thought to myself, a 15-year-old, that what if the worst could happen in this world? What are the sectors that I feel will never ever really suffer? So my naive mind, a 15-year-old mind, told me that the food sector would always continue to strive. So I put 25% of the money in Nestle. I did a lot of research on the CEO and the leadership of the company. The second one was mobile phones had just started to come in. I invested 25% of the money in Nokia. I knew, coming from a developing country, that energy and infrastructure was one sector that was deemed to grow. So I put 25% of the money in a company called Tyco, and 25% for bad days in capital protected deposit. Time went by. In 1999-2000, there was a global recession as well as a huge fall of the capital markets. I remember the capital markets going down by 40%. My boss's portfolio went down by 80% because she had leveraged and hedged it, while my portfolio went up by 25%. Although she got the bonuses, but I learned the power of simplicity during that time. That if you are able to simplify the most complicated, most complex problems that came into you, you would find a solution. At the same time in the evening, I clearly remember working as a waiter in a Nepali restaurant. And I told the restaurant owner that, sir, please give me £1 a day and I'll work as hard as possible. Like any organizations, even in business like restaurant, has its HR, organization structure, an input, output, product that goes in, raw materials, customers come in. I learned a lot working my stint at the restaurant. But the second lesson I learned at that time was, till today, I still have that 73 pounds, which taught me the value of money. A lot of times we've even heard investment gurus like Warren Buffett talking about the entire attitude and mindset you need to have of being frugal. Power of simplicity and understanding the value of money. I came back home when I was 18 in 2000, when Nepal was just going through the peak of its insurgency. Having a lot of ideas coming back to Nepal during this time, I started working my way up from ground up on the field, riding behind Tata Mobiles, distributing various food products to electronic products. I clearly remember at 19, I was coming back with my father from Nawalparasi, our industrial park, And I was going in telling him ideas that, I want to climb up the corporate ladder, prove myself, but I need this investment for this idea. I need this kind of support from you. So he said, you've got to manage and prove yourself in the organization, but let me leave you with a very good story. He asked me, do you know who John D. Rockefeller is? And I said, of course, the whole world knows who John D. Rockefeller was. So he said, while growing up, John D. Rockefeller was struggling, and he had a really good friend of his called David. And David had a son called Tim. So David asked Tim the same question if he knew John D. Rockefeller, and told him they were childhood friends, and if in life he ever got into problems, he would get in touch with John D. Rockefeller, and he would definitely help him out. Years went by, and John D. Rockefeller's friend, due to health reasons, passed away. His son Tim had no choice. He struggled a lot. He had no choice but to call his dad's friend, John D. Rockefeller. Now, it's not easy to just call up John D. Rockefeller. So he very persistently and consistently kept trying the Rockefeller Center. And one day, the receptionist passed the phone to his secretary. Kept calling the secretary, and one day the secretary told John D. Rockefeller, "Sir, this person claims to be your childhood friend's son. He wanted to meet you." And John D. Rockefeller says, "Sure, call him to the hot dog stand in Central Park on Thursday at 2 o'clock. And that's what the secretary does. Now, Tim is just flabbergasted and surprised that the world's richest man could have sent me a private jet or a limousine, but yet he's called me to a hot dog stand. Anyway, he went there, and waiting for John D. Rockefeller to come, they come and they start talking. John D. Rockefeller comes in with his entourage, and first thing John D. Rockefeller tells Tim is, "Son, why don't you go buy 2 hot dogs and come?" This guy is thinking, I've saved every penny and dollar coming over here, and he's asking me to buy hot dogs for him. So anyway, he goes, buys 2 hot dogs, and they're having their lunch. And John D. Rockefeller takes him in his arms, and they start walking through Central Park and through the financial district in New York, and right on the Rockefeller Center. He tells him, "Okay, son, all the best of luck in life. Tell me how things go." And this is the time Tim says, "Hey, uncle, I came here to ask for help, and this is what I get." And John D. Rockefeller tells him, "Son, do you know who did you buy lunch for today?" There are people queuing up to buy lunch for John D. Rockefeller. When I was taking you in my arms around Central Park, there were hundreds of people saying, "Who's this guy with John D. Rockefeller?" When I was taking you to the financial district, world's top bankers were peeping out of their window and saying, "Who's this guy with John D. Rockefeller?" And me right under my building, I'm bidding you goodbye. If all this doesn't help you, then God help you. This was the power of networking, was the third lesson and learning that I learned at a very, very young age. Subsequently, I landed up starting a business after 2 months with a little bit of savings that I have from my school days, and the company broke even in 3 days. One of the most important learnings that I've had during the course of my journey is the power of humility. The power of humility, at the same time being aggressive, are completely different but can go hand in hand. But being humble is also having the ability to listen, having the ability to learn. I also make sure that even though I've not got a qualified master's degree, but it's been almost 15 years that every year I decide to go to some college or do some distance learning program to continuously educate myself, attend a lot of networking programs and events, to meet people who will inspire me, to learn from people who've been successful, and that's what I continue to do. And you're able to do that if you've understood what the power of humility and being humble is all about. Being compassionate. It's very, very important. Does not matter in a monetary form. But I believe most of us who are watching this video are privileged as well as lucky that we've, in this life, developed some skill that we are proud of. There are a lot of people, majority of people who do not have these skills. You must be able to be in a position to encompass and provide that skill to the people that are in need. You are in a position sitting with privilege. You have that moral obligation and duty to give back to the society. That comes from being compassionate. And being compassionate comes from a good sense of having a mindfulness life through meditation. And that is why I give so much of emphasis on the power of Sudarshan Kriya. That has helped me as an individual to think clearly. You look at a muddy glass of water. Once the mud settles down, is when you meditate. And when the glass becomes clear is when you can think much, much more sharply, transparently, and much more clearly in life. So meditate, be compassionate, and have a good work-life balance. I always share this with my brothers as well, that life is like a jar. And you got to decide what are the kind of marbles, the priorities you want in your life. And you make sure that those marbles or pebbles are placed right at the bottom of the jar. And subsequently to fill the jar, you can have your health, your career, your family, your professional life, society, and it goes all the way and fills the jar. Fill the jar with some sand, grains of sand. The sands will go and settle amongst the pebbles and jar. While the sand will go and somehow settle in, that's everything else that are not prioritized in your life. That will anyway find space, time for you. But the marbles that are your priority are intact and non-negotiable. I also want to share with you, I love reading books, and I feel that's a great sense of motivation for me to constantly learning from people's lives, learnings. I clearly remember Jack Welch's book, Straight from the Gut, a leader I admire a lot, who talked about this particular success formula called 4 E's wrapped around 1 P. The first E, energy. You must have the ability, the fire in your belly to be able to follow your dreams, to just aggressively do not give up and consistently and persistently work towards it. Second E is energize. You must have the ability to be able to also create a team that sees the same vision and dream as you and make them feel the same level of energy that you have. The third E is execute. No matter what type of dreams and plans that you have, unless you have the ability to execute those dreams, it doesn't matter. The fourth E, edge. You must be different. You must differentiate your ideas and your leadership skills from the rest. All these 4 E's wrapped around 1 P, passion. You've got to be passionate about what you do. It does not matter how long it takes, but you've got to find your passion. You've got to enjoy every moment of the things that you're doing. What I would also like to say, during this lockdown, I've been fortunate to get a couple of games of golf with my father. And I can really relate the game of golf with my father as well, where you have a beautiful golf course like our life, the various golf clubs, like the various challenges and obstacles that we have, the golf ball, like the goals that we have. You got to practice your swing. Keep your eyes focused on the ball and then let the swing do the trick. But at the same time, appreciate the course, appreciate the life. Don't take life too seriously. In this journey, have fun and God bless. Thank you.